Hi there, welcome. My name is Sarah Gura, and I'm a master's level licensed clinical professional counselor in Illinois, and I am a licensed mental health counselor here in Florida. My practice is the self-care path, and I specialize in treating first responders. In the last video I posted, I talked about make a change, make it safe, make it a norm. And this is a copy of that article, and I just wanted to go over it with you. And hopefully we can see what we mean by implementing Life Safety Initiative number 13, which is first responders and their family members must have access to counseling and psychological support services. But first and foremost, whenever we do something, I like to encourage adults who are helping, saving, protecting, rescuing, actually any adult, that when you are a high functioning person who goes 100 miles per hour and you're always doing something like listening now to a YouTube channel about psychological information as it's relevant to your career, I would say take a deep breath in on that idea. And on the exhale, pull your shoulders down and away from your ears. Maybe align the spine and notice any tension in your body and see if you can release that tension, even if it's just a little bit. I like to root down through my sit bones and sort of wiggle my toes and notice my body and make sure that my interoception, my exteroception are on point for my own mental and physical health and well-being. It's an emotionally intelligent thing to have a balance between both knowledges, mental and physical. And of course, I think that practice, when you combine them, is quite spiritual in and of itself. But as you notice your breath and maybe spread your fingers like starfish and just sort of prepare your body to listen. I want to thank you for being here. And I do want to encourage people to listen to the channel, subscribe and like it. But of course, nobody has to do that. Um, Without further ado, let's jump in. So I consider this a topic of first responder psychological support. I have titled this article, Make a Change, Make It Safe, Make It a Norm. And I go through a little bit of my history, which, if you want a copy of this, you're more than welcome to email me. My email's at the end, but it's sarahgura@gmail.com. And if you just say, give me the article, I'll send it to you. But mainly I want to use this time to focus on the different ways I'd like to suggest your department get their stuff together, as it says, when it comes to first responder psychological support, in support of the life safety initiatives created shortly after 9/11, and specifically the Life Safety Initiative number 13. First responders and their family members must have access to counseling and psychological support services. I offer these ideas, and of course, I hope it's helpful. So how do we make a change? How do we make it safe for first responders to have psychological support services and access after such a long time of existing without those supports? And of course, I acknowledge, that this has been tackled for years and years, but we're still in the pioneering, stage of this. And back in 2010, I wrote the first 13 Make It Safe initiatives of my own, but it again has evolved quite a bit, and this is the 2025 version. But this initiative encourages 13 different ideas. The first one is every first responder should self-monitor and take personal responsibility for his or her mental health and wellness. In other words, they should self-care. Too many times I have heard peer support teams or management administration saying you have to watch your peers. And I don't advocate for that because it gives you this like personal responsibility and accountability idea that whether or not someone else has good mental health is on you, or if they kill themselves or not, it is on you. And that's just super unhealthy and unrealistic. You do not have control of other people. Now you can listen, validate, relate, refer them to counseling. You can offer a peer support service, but to make the change, to make it safe, for this to be a real norm, First Responder Initiative encourages every first responder to self-monitor and take personal responsibility for his or her own mental health and wellness. Okay. Number 2, every first responder should seek psychological support if they experience mental and behavioral health symptoms due to personal or professional reasons. So a lot of times we choose to be stoic. We want to repress things or suppress things, which is a certain type of dissociation when we ignore, deny, minimize, and numb what's going on with us. And so we have to change that and say, instead of ignoring or dissociating or not asking for help when you need it, it is on you to ask for psychological support if you think you need it. A counselor can assess and say, you know what, I think you're doing pretty good. I would look out for A, B, or C things. If you need any help, let me know. And I have done that before. It's called an annual behavioral health review, where I would sit with the guys from different departments back in Illinois. I have not done this for Florida. And I do an initial assessment with them each year to check on, hey, how are things going? This is what it sounds like to me. I would work on this, or I would watch out for that, like I just said. But seek out that psychological support preemptively or when you actually feel it. That would help make this change and make it safe and make it a norm for first responder psychological support to exist. Okay. Now, the third one, it says every first responder needs to be trained in career-related psychological support topics, including self-help, peer support trainings, psych education as it's relevant to the career, including topics like post or potentially traumatic events, vicarious traumas, trauma bonding, compassion fatigue, burnout, stress management, depression, anxiety, PTSD, PTG, which is post-traumatic growth, any drug, alcohol, or substance abuse issues, addictions issues, even responding to high-risk ideations of your own or of someone that you want to protect. Sometimes we want to protect a brother or sister in the field because we feel like it's going to create a huge paperwork or legal mess or possibly hurt their employment. But what we want to do is save a life. So learning about all of those things, there's laws involved, there's private healthcare information, legalities, and learning about it so that you understand how to help and do it effectively with the least amount of damage is important. But we're not teaching about that. And if we are, thank you to the teachers. You're amazing and wonderful. And as always, like, drop your information in the comments so that people have additional resources if they want it. I'm happy to be a platform for as many helpful services as possible. But anyway, it's so important to take a look at your ATPs, your annual training plans, and see, do we have any psychological support topics? Do we have any counselors on hand that have actually worked with us? I'm not talking about they read a book, although there's not many, or they took a two-hour training. I mean, find a therapist that understands your department, how it functions, your career, and some of the things that you might be bringing into a therapy session. We have therapists now that have years of experience doing this. And again, if you are one of those counselors that can say, I have years of experience working with first responders as a counselor or psychological support therapist, please drop a comment and your information below. You are so more than welcome to be here. But what we want to do is get those annual training plans to cover this information by professionals that understand it and can teach it. And then hopefully as our peer support teams become more sophisticated, it will be a norm or just common knowledge about these careers. But let's go ahead and keep this rolling and hit number 4. Every first responder needs to stop criticizing other first responders for seeking or engaging in any type of support services and allow first responders to talk about it, cry about it, and ask for help. If you are one of the, as I call them, douchebag bullies that says that therapy is not for first responders, that something must be wrong with you, or you're not fit to do the job, or maybe you shouldn't be here. My hope is that you address your own concerns, your own mental health issues, and stop raining on everyone else's parade and stop criticizing. We need to clean up the environment in which first responders have, and that prevents them from asking for psychological support because they feel badly about it in some way, or they think that it is wrong for some reason. I always encourage people, let's take the right, wrong, good, bad out of it. Those are all judgments. Instead, let's talk about what is wise versus unwise. And if you are going to self-monitor and take the personal responsibility to take care of your own mental health, you have to be able to ask for it. But I also understand that we need a better environment and platform to do that. Also, if you're an administrator who's still pretty old school, although I know you're all kind of getting to that retirement age, you are going to experience some things that maybe need to ask for help yourself. Please don't get in the way of people that you are supposed to be mentoring, leading, role modeling for, teaching, coaching, supervising. Like those are all very serious roles. And if you are part of the criticism for psychological support, we're going to need you to turn that volume down. Okay. Now let's look at number 5. We want every first responder at all levels of the organization to use accurate knowledge and a positive attitude regarding first responder mental health so that others are encouraged to ask for help and not hide or isolate when experiencing a psychological or other personal or professional difficulty. So 4 and 5 go hand in hand, but number 4 is about stop criticizing, and number 5 is all about use accurate knowledge and positive attitude so that we are encouraged to ask for help when we need it. I always have to say, I am not trying to sell my services. I am happy to help you if you ask me. I'm here, as are many other counselors. Go to the one you like. I am not for everyone. And that counselor is not for everyone. So thank goodness there's a variety. But again, my point being, at all levels of the organization, we need to be leading the way and making initiative number 13 just as successful as the others. I know these 16 life safety initiatives were primarily written for firefighters, actually. And it says things, as I've mentioned before, like you have to wear a seatbelt, you have to wear an SCBA. We embrace those, like without judgment. But this slap an EAP on it and forget it exists attitude, we still are clearing out some of the nooks and crannies and cobwebs of that. And I think that, again, there are a lot of professionals out here trying to help change that, but we need the actual culture of first responder world to respond also. It can't just be on the professionals that are trying to implement this change. Two-sided team effort. So what else does this say? We want number 6, every first responder leader and all administrators to better educate themselves about the nature of first responder mental health issues and to take the lead in responding more appropriately, effectively, competently to those first responders in need. So again, I'm still hearing about some faux pas about psychological support from leaders and administrators where they are sort of lost and unsure what to say, or they think what they are going to say or already have said was helpful, but when in fact it wasn't based on research, it wasn't based on the facts. And so I'm holding people responsible here. When I was in Illinois, I taught the health and safety officer course, and this was a major point that we would make, that you have to better educate yourself. I also taught through NIPSTA at or for the chief fire officer course. And again, we talked about, let's actually educate and learn about first responder mental health issues. We are not talking about kumbaya and, oh, I can't wait for you to pension out. And all these sissies, have feelings that like you just don't want to deal with. That we have to stop it with that and say there are potentially traumatic events that really affect their mental, physical well-being, relationships, and it goes through the course of their career, which is now with tier 2 and beyond, more than a 20+ year career. These people are going to be in these depleting careers and vocations for much longer than what the administration is currently in. And we have already proven that this career ages you quickly, both physically and mentally, because of the overexposure to human illness, human death, human suffering, human stupidity, and property destruction. So if you add the politics and BS on top of that, we are really wearing and tearing down. And to me, the first responder, we're wearing and tearing down the first responder. And to me, that it makes sense when the human finally blows a gasket, and I'm not trying to make an excuse or a justification for that, but there is an explanation. And when we have an explanation, there's a problem to solve. And when we have a problem, we fall in love with the problem and we go into resolution mode. If you don't, then we're not doing life safety initiative number 13, redheaded stepchild, as again I call it. So what else can we do to make a change, to make it safe, and to make this a new norm? Number 7, every first responder leader and administrator to have a psychological support health policy in place and initiate incident-specific protocols to support first responders and their families when first responders are involved in potentially traumatic events. So what was the homework for health and safety officer classes and chief fire officer classes back in Illinois? Show me your policy. Write a psychological support health policy. Now, I admit we were kind of lost. I remember when I was hired, they said, we want you to teach this or as if it were a graduate level course. And so I did, but I found how we are not ready for that. I ended up writing the policy myself and having to give it to them the second go around of teaching, because I learned that for homework, everyone was lost. They didn't know that, okay, should we have a separate policy if somebody comes in drunk? Should we have a different policy if someone was arrested for domestic violence? What do we do if we just have a guy who's excellent at his job, but behaviorally he's like a bear and completely inappropriate and just a toxic pain in the ass to work with? There were just so many different psychological support issues that we were like, how do you write a policy for that? Well, guess what? I'm going to go over it. But also it's in my podcast. So in addition to this YouTube, I have an old podcast from the COVID days. It's called First Responder Psychological Support. And it is, you can find it on Spotify if you type that in and my name. And there are 4 different podcasts, I believe, just on policy alone, which I want to redo and put into a PowerPoint presentation and YouTube version. Because eventually I think I want to get rid of that old podcast. I could hear, the 5-year difference, in myself today from putting that out. But anyway, it's so important that you guys are operating from a policy so that it is fair, so that everyone knows what to expect. It becomes more of a norm when it's a reality at that level. And I am happy to help your department get there. There are so many cool ways to integrate psychological support other than slapping a 1-800-EAP counselor number on it, which connects you to a counselor that maybe has no experience working with first responders. So let's do more, let's do better. But let's also move on. Number 8. We want every first responder and leader to use their status to role model what it means to self-care in a career that will overexpose its employees to human illness, suffering, death, stupidity, and property destruction. So of course, each one kind of blends with the other, but they are separate. And I want people to understand each one is a standard standing on its own, because it all is a part of making a change and safety and a new norm in the first responder departments. So we really need to have people who are leading to actually include all the parts. And as a leader myself, I know that it is not easy to, um, it's just a lot. How do I want to say that? There's so many things that we have to do competently and effectively. And you can sort of feel like, why do I have to be an expert now at everything? Well, that's what being a leader is about, in my opinion. And part of accomplishing knowing all of those things is having a beautiful team that you supervise, delegate, participate with. And when you have that bi-directional focus, and you're willing to learn and grow or refer to someone, that is a part of being an effective, competent leader and showing like, hey, I may not know everything and I may not be an expert in everything, but I will expertly and professionally get you what you need as a human being working for other human beings. So I know it's a high standard um, to discuss, but I believe in us. I really do. And I'm happy to help teach anyone how to command, supervise, delegate, participate, role model, coach, and get this work done. We're a smart species. We can do it. All right, so there's my pep talk. Now, number 9, which let me hang on, not number 9 yet. I will also teach that class on YouTube about the different ways that we can lead, adapt, overcome, and grow, especially in psychological support topics. Now I'll go to number 9. We want the development of policy, programs, treatment, and support groups backed by your departments, your unions, your employee counseling programs, workmen's compensation, and the state law. This includes psychological testing normed on first responder populations when testing is mandated. So, back in the day, we would have forensic psychologists give psych tests to first responders, and they were not normed on the first responder population. And that can skew the results and the reporting, also the understanding of who the client, patient, or person being studied or assessed, and what those results look like. So it's again important that we do this from a level that is multifaceted, but again, backed by your department. I don't think that it's wise that we just kind of willy-nilly pick out different providers to help us get through all of these different facets of first responder psychological support. Again, this is why I remain forever kind and helpful and connected. And also, I sometimes I emphasize other providers in the first responder psychological support realm, because what I said to one was, we all take our post on the whipping post. I was answering her in response to criticizing some other people who are trying to do this. And inevitably, in the first responder world, that's what we do. And what we want to change again is I will help, save, protect, rescue, not damage, further criticize, kick you when you're down. And that has to be talked about. Unfortunately, that is a part of some of the negativity in this culture. So we want all of this to be, a network that we love and feel gratitude for. And that's what number 9 is about. So now let's look at number 10. We want the development of training and programs and support groups for first responder spouses and family members. We can't leave them out. Again, in the light of Initiative 13, it says first responders and their family members, and we're still not really including spouses and family. And we let some of those problems go behind closed doors. And that makes no sense to me. Again, I would love to see spouses have a probie year to be acknowledged each year whenever their spouse or life partner is awarded with something or promoted, to include them in that. Although I know we invite them to be audience members, I don't know if we acknowledge, for example, like when a person is studying for the lieutenant's exam in the fire department, what a wild year that is for that family. The book reading, the studying, the classes, the discussions, the time away from their family, in addition to what the career already takes away and any second jobs that may already take away from being a spouse and a parent and a homeowner. Like we don't acknowledge it, and we sort of leave the spouses and children out to dry. And including them in initiative number 13, I think, is imperative. So it's listed here. Again, happy as I go through this YouTube channel to discuss everything in more detail as it unfolds. But we'll hit number 11 next. We want to have appropriately structured and properly trained and clinically supervised peer support teams, residential centers, and rehabilitation treatments specific to first responders. Now, there are many groups out there that are supported and sell this kind of therapy. And it's, again, wonderful. They are pioneering something that is very challenging and difficult. And we want to make sure that we are constantly restructuring, again, falling in love with the problem and making sure that we're solving any issues that come up in creating all of these different services. And when I say properly trained, I wrote a curriculum called First Responder Psychological Supports, and it was copyrighted back in 2014 so that therapists can learn about the careers, be clinically supervised, providing the service, and even participate in ride-alongs. And I have not done that work probably in 5 or 6 years, although I have worked with different interns individually in that time. My main job has not been to mass produce therapists in this field. I'm still doing the counseling myself and teaching classes like this in this way. And so we need more people to sort of get out there and help us create this structure, this training, and to make sure the peer support teams are helping and not harming. And I know many peer support teams have great intentions and do a lot of helping, but understanding the law and psychological support, I really do believe in the clinical supervision of those peer support teams. So let's hit a period on that one and hit number 12. We want every first responder entity to provide easy and confidential access to counseling and specialized first responder psychological support services. So maybe an example of this is it's on a flyer that's laminated in the bathroom. Quickly can take a picture of that, maybe get a square code, or a QR code that they can scan and get at any time. If they go on your share drive at the department, easy to pull it up with quick and easy access to get any information that they need about providers. And I know that we've already started a lot of that networking in Illinois and in Florida, but I think, again, making sure all the departments have it, that it's mandated that that access is there and that it's updated regularly, because so many times I have heard guys say, I called the 1-800 number and no one answered. I texted the number and no one replied. Or I called and I didn't really connect with that person. Or they're a little frustrated that, it's taken, 2-3 people to finally find a good match for myself. I recently experienced that actually, where we found that a therapist that the first responder was working with was not a really great match. And it took some shopping through therapists to find out, that he finally has found, a fantastic match for what he needed. But anyway, all of these things important that we have that access to the information. So I also will teach a class about the first responder psychological support folder, referral folder. And it talks about some key numbers you can have in there, like Safe Call Now or Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance, or what your local critical incident stress management team number and contact is. So for your EAP that matches your insurance and what the real rules are, which include for like Illinois, for example, they do have EAPs that are tied to their insurance. And as of June of 2025, no first responder will pay a copay or a deductible. So knowing that and understanding like I am covered is really important. And again, we're working on it in Florida. Some amazing professionals here trying to get those same benefits for our first responders. It's not my job or role. I'm not taking that on, but I certainly advocate and support it. So let's get to number 13, the last initiative. We want every first responder to embrace Life Safety Initiative number 13 of the 16 life safety initiatives. First responders and their family members must have access to counseling and psychological support services by doing more than just offering an EAP service or lip service, but by following as many initiative suggestions as possible in the current time, meaning right now. So again, I first wrote this in 2014. And this is the version of 2025. This is my contact information. You can email me at sarah@selfcarepath.com or Sarah Gura, Sarah with an H, at gmail.com. It'll get to me. And I'm happy to answer any questions or just send these different ideas your way. I hope that this is helpful. And I'm going to remind you to take another one of those deep breaths in. On the exhale, just release your body. Maybe roll the neck gently side to side. Move those fingers, toes. And I'll say thank you so much for listening. I'm Sarah Gura. I'm a master's level licensed clinical professional counselor in Illinois and a licensed mental health counselor here in Florida. My practice is the self-care path, and I specialize in treating first responders. All right. Thank you so much and take care. Bye-bye.